We have our friend here, Bob Iaccino, who is one of the co-founders of Path Trading Partners and works with Colonial Metals Group, the great sponsor of Right Side Broadcasting Network. And former Chicagoan, as I am, Mr. Bob, welcome to RSBN. A pleasure to have you.
It's good to see you.
Now, talk to us about how important it is to have these tangible metals, because whether it's properties, assets, the 401k and IRA that many of our viewers do have, and even with the excitement of crypto, we know that gold has skyrocketed since the Nixon administration left the gold standard in 1971. So what does that mean for each and every American out there trying to secure their financial future?
Well, between you, me, and your viewers, I think you shouldn't be excited about an investment when it is the spot where you're protecting your wealth. Protection isn't exciting. Protection's a requirement. And really what we're seeing now is the potential for a dramatic shift to economic chaos. We have this thing going on between Elon Musk and President Trump. And make no mistake, President Trump's going to win this if Elon Musk continues to hold that side of it. Elon Musk did a good job in the beginning with Doge, but there are a lot of people who can cut spending programs. What the president is trying to do is he's trying to take a ball-peen hammer rather than a sledgehammer to the problems in the U.S. economy. You can't take a sledgehammer to it because the pain that's created, only something like gold would solve. So when I look at it from a perspective of what people should be doing when they want to protect their wealth, right now, in my view, gold is the only thing that makes sense. It's a friend of mine used to say a long time ago, you need to invest in things that when you drop them on your foot, they hurt. That's what gold is. You can hold your money in your hands, you can see it, you can look at it. And when you look at gold versus all other assets, in good times, it outperforms. In bad times, it outperforms to the downside, meaning it loses less. And really making that money back up is the hard part, and the part that most people, in sort of their established years of life, protecting wealth is much more important.
So true. And even going to my generation, the millennials, or even those Gen Zers who might be in post-secondary school right now at their four-year college institutions, perhaps some of them in apprenticeships as that's become more popular now that we know people will actually do great jobs, great trade jobs defended by President Trump and this administration. What's the one thing that's being taught wrong in this country when it comes to securing that financial growth and wealth?
Well, I think the phrase that people are using now a lot is FOMO, fear of missing out. I try to explain to people all the time that if you have $100 in your pocket and you lend out 50 to a friend, and that friend disappears, you now have to double that $50 to get back to where you were. In other words, you have to earn 100%. Anyone listening knows how hard it is to earn 100%. You go to your job, whether it's a physical job, mentally taxing job, you put in your time and they pay you. And then it's up to you to protect that money, not to look at what your neighbor has. There's no nobility in comparing yourself to your neighbor. The only nobility is comparing yourself to where you were yesterday. And you will never regret protecting your wealth for yourself and your family and future generations. And the only thing that does that with a secure 5,000-year history is gold. So I think that's the thing that's being taught wrong. The other day I was talking to a friend, and he said that his financial advisor said, well, if you're going to invest in gold, you might as well have a farm and goats and guns and ammunition. By the way, I'm not against those other things, as mentioned, that you should have. But that completely ignores what's happened with gold over the last 5 years. The S&P annualized has returned 14.3% a year. Gold's done 14.7%. And when they dropped, the NASDAQ dropped by over 35%. Gold was almost less than half of that when it did drop. Gold, to me, is the only thing that can't go to zero. I don't mean to run on here, but I remember being back during the financial crisis where people said things like stocks can't go to zero. Those people owned General Motors, Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns. All of those did go to zero. Gold is not going to zero.
And it's really not running on for me. I'm enjoying the conversation because I think this is so crucial for every American at any point they're at in their life right now, because this is something that was abandoned years and years ago. And to your point, 5,000 years of this human history where gold is such a hot commodity. Do you think we should go back to the so-called gold standard, or is there something that could be done legislatively outside of what President Trump is trying to do from the executive, with not only cutting the spending and all of the tariffs and all the wealth that will bring back to the country, but really getting off the reliance on solely paper money?
It's difficult to unring a bell, and this is part of the reason that I'm so committed to gold. When I started working with Colonial Metals Group, I did an exhaustive search of who I'd like to work with on this particular subject. Now, I've been buying gold since I was a teenager because my father was buying gold. I'm the child of legal immigrants, and my parents bought gold because that's what they believed in coming from another country. They didn't want to rely on a government that they weren't sure about, that they didn't even speak the same language as in the beginning of their early life here in the United States. That obviously changed down the road. But for me, when you look at fiat currencies, which is what paper money is, you look at it and says, this is legal tender. That's because the government says it's legal tender. I don't mean to go off in maybe what might be a bad direction, but the government's told us a lot of things lately that didn't end up being true and didn't end up holding water. Gold, well, if you have the right shape of gold, if you have a gold bowl, it holds water. But the reason that I look at it the way that I do is because I've been buying gold for a long time, and I've lost sleep over some of my other investments. I've never opened up that safe door and lost sleep looking at a bar of gold or looking at a bag of gold coins that we have in another safe. It's a very comfortable feeling knowing. And by the way, this happened to me. I live in Southwest Florida, and after one of the hurricanes, I couldn't get to my bank because their ATM wasn't working. I went to a gold dealer, sold him a coin, and I had money. It really is money. Recently, Florida passed a law recognizing gold and silver as legal tender. Kind of rolled my eyes. Gold is money. It's always been money. Mm-hmm. Passing a law is like kind of stamping a tall guy with tall on his forehead. We all know what it is. So from my perspective, it's the only money out there. Paper money used to be backed by gold. Again, the horse is already out of the barn. I don't know that they can unring that bell. I'd like to see it happen, but I think it would be leaving a lot of people out in the cold if we did that overnight. I think people should realize that there's a very real possibility of the chaos leading into a direction where our currency needs to be backed by something. You see other countries doing it. Other countries, their central banks are loading up on gold. When you look at that chart, it is straight up. You need to be doing the same, in my opinion.
And what separates Colonial Metals Group from the other competition in the business?
If you call Colonial Metals Group, you'll be surprised that gold is one of the things they deal in, because they're really just trying to educate you on it. And they're trying to put you in a position to make your own decision, similar to what you guys are trying to do. Here's the story, decide for yourself. They're ethical, they're empathetic, and they're really, really kind human beings, in my opinion. You can call for yourself and then, come back next time I'm on the show, send an email or a message that says, Bob was wrong. They weren't very nice. They are. They're very nice people. They're ethical. You can just look at their Trustpilot scores, very trustworthy. They're trying to help to educate you on what the current scenario is. Doubling the deficit since 2020 here in the U.S. That's a very real situation. If that doesn't make sense to you just intuitively, because this is not your core discipline, Colonial Metals helps you work through that. And again, they're just kind. They're just trying to make you understand things.
And a great way to do that is by visiting freegoldguide.com/RSBN. And having some background in sales, I appreciate that myself, Bob. The fact that it is no obligation, there's no force, trying to simply educate people and giving them that space and that time to find out what's best for them and their families. Now, do you recommend this to people, say, in college, or those that are senior citizens, or maybe somewhere in between? What's the ideal age to start protecting your retirement?
I think it starts as early as you have enough capital or enough wealth stored up to buy one gold coin. I really do. Because it's really important for people later in their careers. It's extremely important. When you look at, again, most people are in stocks in their retirement accounts. They have an IRA. They should probably switch it to a self-directed IRA so they could drive their own car. There's a lot of talk about autonomous driving. A lot of people say they're not going to trust a computer to drive the car for them. Maybe some of them will, but you let somebody else drive your money for you as opposed to driving it yourself. When you look at, as an example, let's say you got a new car and you ask your friend to, here, drive it. I want you to see why I bought this car, see how beautiful it is, see how nice it rides. And they start swerving all over the road. You tell them to pull over and you get behind the wheel. Okay, that's more important for people who are, let's say, 35 plus, because you're looking at a time where everyone looks at their retirement accounts and says, okay, I've got X amount of money. You don't. You don't. You have a statement that says if you were able to sell everything out right now tax-free, you would have X amount of money, which is not the case 90% of the time. I actually have a personal story. I know someone, I'll leave out the relationship that I have with them, who was ready to retire in 2007, decided to work another 2 years and lost close to 60% of their wealth because of the financial crisis and had to continue working. If that would have been in gold, not only would they have not lost that wealth, they would have actually made about 14, 15% because that's what gold did immediately post the financial crisis. So it's really important for 35 on. But again, I started buying gold very, very young. And as the dollar continued to devalue, that gold held sway.
Thank you for sharing that insight, because those storms, literally and figuratively speaking, can hit at different times in life, as we saw with that housing crisis roughly 2 decades ago. Now, my question is, when it comes to gold and silver specifically, people will protect their children, say with the 401k, the IRA, even perhaps life insurance. How can that be converted or be in conjunction with a great organization like Colonial Metals Group?
Well, again, if you call them, they can walk you through the process of changing your IRA to what's called a self-directed IRA. And it's basically what I described a second ago. You're now driving the car, okay? And it's your own car, by the way. You're not driving somebody else's car. You're driving your car, and you're deciding what goes in and what doesn't. And again, the good thing about Colonial Metals Group is you're not going to call them and they're not going to say, we want to put you in the next electric car stock that we think is going to triple in the next few years. They're going to help you secure the wealth that you've already worked so hard to accumulate. And they're also going to help you protect it from powers that may want to take it from you at some point, as well as protect it for the generations that are following you, the people you want to leave things to. You really want to make someone in your family happy over the long term, leave them a gold bar or hand them a couple of gold coins. No one's going to report you. I mean, you're just going to be able to hand it to them, and they're going to take it home, and they're going to have something of value, and they're going to have something to remember you by. It's one of the best ways to treat your descendants, in my opinion.
Bob Iaccino, he is the co-founder of Path Trading Partners and works with Colonial Metals Group. Bob, thank you so much for your insight. I think this is great for the viewers. It's great for me to refresh my mind on all of these sometimes complicated questions, but a lot of common sense behind gold and silver, and no one does it better than Colonial Metals Group. Where can they find the organization, and where can they find your expertise online?
Well, I'm everywhere online, but mostly I operate on X when I do put anything out there publicly. Colonial Metals Group, 1-800-618-7555. That's the easiest way to get a hold of them. Or just go to colonialmetalsgroup.com. You can find them there.
Wonderful. And we have our direct link of freegoldguide.com/RSBN. Bob, thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to having you again on the right side of history.
Good to see you guys.